All right, we are returning from closed session. Thank you for waiting for us, all of you folks up here. We welcome all of the guests that are here with us and those of you who are watching us on TV and elsewhere. Sometimes there's folks next door too. I want to especially welcome a particular guest that's in the audience, who is a new person for TUSD. It is Jaconda Rodriguez Padilla. She is our Director of Purchasing and Communications Services. Let's give her a hand. Jaconda was hired in February 1997 as a classified supervisor and later as a purchasing director in the Hawthorne School District. In August 2015, she was hired as a director of procurement and contract services in the Glendale Unified School District. She has over 22 years of experience serving school districts in modernization, construction, and a variety of educational initiatives and purchasing processes. Jaconda received her Bachelor of Science in Business Management and her Master of Business Administration at the University of Phoenix, and her Master of Human Resource Management and her Master of Public Administration and Certification Project Management at Keller Graduate School of Management. Wow, at DeVry University. We'd like to welcome Jaconda to our district. Welcome, welcome. You want to come up and say a few words? And maybe introduce your special guests too.
Thank you very much, members of the board. Thank you to the cabinet and all the members and the guests. I'd like to introduce my husband, Carlos Padilla. Our eldest son, Camilo. My daughter-in-law and alum of Torrance Unified School District, Jasmine. And with us, our youngest, our 27-year-old that flew the coop this weekend, and he's in Santa Cruz, Carlos Jr. So thank you very much. This is a privilege for me. I'm very excited for this opportunity coming back to the South Bay. I am looking forward to working very hard and meeting all of the expectations that Dr. Stowe outlined, and I realize that there are opportunities and there are challenges and there are financial elements to all of this, but we will do the best I can in presenting Dr. Stowe reasonable and logical improvements, especially to serve and maximize the students of Torrance Unified School District.
All right, very nice. We're thrilled to have you and look forward to getting to know you in your capacity for TUSD. Anybody have anything they want to say up here?
Welcome.
Mr. Stefan wants to say hello. He might have some perhaps acquaintance from a former school district.
He is a success story on my resume.
I am a success story.
You got him to
I don't
do
know
something?
how successful at the end of it is, but that's a whole nother story. But I didn't know there were so many ways you could cross a T and dot an I and get something right. I just would work with Gil and you during those years of maintenance, and the camaraderie and the teamwork were some of the most pleasurable and best learning experiences I've ever had. I couldn't get anything past you. I tried a million different ways. It never worked. So I can't wait for Torrance to experience your professionalism and your the experience you've had in this area. And I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you.
And the team is somewhat back. So there you go. Look at that.
There you go.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
All right.
Okay.
Now you have
so-
to take them all out to dinner right now.
Right?
Something expensive.
Thanks. Take care.
Guys, have a good evening.
Okay, so having welcomed our special guest and the rest of our other guests too, let's go back to doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, Connor, would you mind leading us in that, please?
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Our first order of business this evening, you all are lucky to be here for this only once a year occurrence, is we have our annual organizational meeting for the board, the election of officers for the coming school year. So we get to look at who will take over the center seat for sure. And I actually would like to make a motion for nominating Michael Wermers for president of the board.
Second.
Okay,
And then I'll make a motion to nominate Mark Steffen as vice president and Martha Deutsch as clerk.
Second those.
do we need to vote on each individually?
Mrs. Reagan's would be clerk.
Oh, Mrs. Reagan clerk.
Yes.
That's right, that's right.
Yes.
I got that wrong. Okay.
Do you? Okay, so.
have both those positions, so I second that.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Michael Wermers for president, for Mark Steffen for vice president, and for myself as clerk for the next year. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then we need to appoint a secretary to the board. Can I get a motion to that effect?
I nominate Dr. Mannon.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint the superintendent, Dr. Mannon, to serve as secretary to the board for the same time period, this next 12-month period. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carried.
Just had to, didn't
God.
I did.
You know, I don't
had to
feel
do
good
it one more
about
time.
You're not-
And we are going to
know.
take a brief
gotta
recess
take a
now
picture, though.
and reorganize and take a quick photo of,
Where's the
the group
photographer? Maybe
for-
we're not going to do it this meeting.
oh, he is here. He was downstairs.
He's elusive.
In fact, he discussed that he was going to be here at 7:10 to do it. And we're at 7:10? Yeah, so.
whole battery of tests. First, they thought it was autoimmune disease. They had to spend a whole day out ruling out infectious causes. It was awful. All of his joints, he swelled.
Okay.
Swelling on all his joints, and it was awful.
Well, did this trip at least make it?
Yes, he managed to get through this entire trip without getting sick. I got a cold, but he's fine.
All the plane germs and such things.
He's not a germaphobe, really, but he does have a tendency to get allergies, and then he reacts. The weird thing was,
All right.
it was an allergic reaction that triggered what they believed was a benign low-lying virus that hadn't really bloomed, and it was all
Oh,
because of a reaction.
I need to call on Dr. Mannon. I forgot about this part of it. How could I possibly forget what we're about to give Mrs. Reagan? She loves to use it so much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll just take this one.
At this time, it's a tradition in our district to provide a gavel to the outgoing president, memorializing their year as the president of the board, and also to thank Mrs. Reagan's and each of our presidents through the years. So we have a gavel for you, Mrs. Reagan.
Oh, I don't get to test
No, you can't.
Try it?
Oh, he's got it all wrapped up.
Yeah. It'll break if you use it.
Thank you. Thanks for a year of hard work.
Now I call the meeting back to order, correct?
Probably a good idea.
We could use it. Adoption of the December 4th regular meeting of board agenda.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Staff presentation from the Torrance Education Foundation, Ms. Swinburne.
Mr. President, just a point, we have no report out in closed session tonight.
Oh, thank you. I skipped over that.
Good evening and happy holiday season to everyone this evening. I have news about another expansion. When I was here last time, I spoke a little bit about the expansions we've been planning for our summer school program, South Bay and Richmond Academy, to respond to community information about some things that we think we might be able to help with. Something new has been added to the schedule, and it's available right now. We are launching some workshops for high school seniors who are applying for colleges and might need some assistance with their college essays and their college application materials. There is a session coming up at West High School on the 18th and 19th, 2 consecutive days, Monday and Tuesday, for students who are working toward a December 30th deadline coming up. And if it proves that there's still interest in January for students who still have ensuing deadlines in the early part of next year, we will potentially schedule one more set of sessions. These will take place in the late afternoon, after school hours in the afternoon on Monday and Tuesday, the 18th and 19th of December, in the counseling area at West. And registration is available on our tefspea.org website. Any questions about that? Okay, we will be continuing to make that information available to our seniors and student bodies. The other thing I want to remind everyone who might be listening, especially teachers in the district, is that we are now accepting interest forms from teachers for our summer school sessions next summer, the summer of 2018. That is also available on our TorranceEducationFoundation.org website. We'd love to have as many teachers who might like to teach with us next summer. Let us know that as possible, and we'll be getting back to them immediately with a thank you for their interest and letting them know as soon as we possibly can what the schedule will look like. That's likely to take place very, very early after the new year. So we encourage teachers in the district to apply to teach with us at South Bay and Richmond Academy next summer. Any questions about that? Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep, and now a report from the Torrance Council of PTAs, Ms. Nolan.
Hello and good evening. I'm excited to share with you a couple of items that will be of a special importance to our college-bound high school students, but especially our seniors. As a parent of a senior, I can say that this is a very exciting time, but also very scary because, well, college applications are, well, I know at least the Common App's already in, and it's, I know I'm not alone in being freaked out about how we're going to pay for all of this. And so I think one of our best kept secrets in Torrance is actually our local PTA scholarships. A lot of parents, guardians, and students don't know this, but a high school senior can turn in a scholarship application with a copy of their membership card and be eligible not for one, but for four, up to 4 units. So they turn it into their school counselor, and we do the rest. Basically, we send a copy to their elementary, middle school, high school, and Torrance Council, and money's up for grabs. And I know a lot of students may think that they're not eligible because, maybe their parents or whatever make too much money for need-based financial aid, but a lot of units don't look at need. Many do grant scholarships based on merit, citizenship, community service. So for any student out there who's really looking for opportunities to pay for books and well, everything, that's definitely an option. And another kind of best kept secret is the California PTA and National PTA also offer scholarships. So a lot of students and parents continue in education, people who are continuing their education, teachers, they have scholarships every year that are pretty sizable. So I would encourage anyone who's college bound or looking to continue their education to definitely check out those 2 resources. Scholarship applications are due at the beginning of the year, so I would ask them to work quickly. And if they don't have a PTA card, you can ask your school secretary, your counselors. Everyone's pretty much keyed into PTA people, so it's easy, super, super easy. And then one other item, again, another best kept secret is Sacramento Safari. That's a PTA function. It's a 2-day event that happens up in Sacramento. We take students from the high school, 1 to 2 students, and they have to fill out an application. We take them up to Sacramento, and they get to meet their local lawmakers and see how items become law, what the wheeling and dealing looks like, how sausage is made, so to speak. And the applications for those are found on the Torrance Council of PTA website, torrancecouncilofptas.org. They can also ask their local PTAs and turn those applications into their local PTA at the high school level, and those are due January 10th. So that's it, pretty exciting stuff. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
And now a report from our student representative, Connor.
So at West High School, we just had our fall play, Noses Off, and it was a very good performance. And then for Thanksgiving, we gave out thankful mints to the teachers to thank them for all their hard work. And one of the major things that's going on at West was our cross-country team has won CIF for the 3rd time, and they qualified for state, and they ended up going to Fresno for the state meet to win their first ever state championship, and it was a lot of fun. And to celebrate, the coach wanted to have a parade down Victor Street, which was a very big idea. And so, since it was the first ever state championship in West Side history, he made a GoFundMe to help raise money for the parade, which happened to be very successful as it raised $3,000 just the first day, which is a lot of money. So, on the day of the parade, the students got to enjoy a short but exciting celebration in front of the school, which had the cross-country team, which started it off, followed by 3 convertibles with special council members, a horse, color guard, band, drill team, one of our teachers, Mr. McBean, on a unicycle, the fire department, cheer, and then a police escort of our double-decker bus carrying the winning state championship team.
Very nice.
Overall, it was very exciting and fun. And for ASB, the current activities we're working on are our mixer, which we're going to be holding on Wednesday for all of the local schools, and our Powder Puff game on December 13th, as well as our Spirit Week next week, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to the public hearing. No?
We have good news.
Oh, I'm sorry. Skipped right over good news. Sorry about that. Good news from student representatives from Anza Elementary and Jefferson Middle School. I'm looking to Dr. Kim and Dr. Dugal.
Thank you, President Wormers. It's my pleasure to introduce two of our student leaders, actually twin student leaders, from Anza Elementary School, Gavin and Ryan Herbers. Can you please come on up? Let's give them a round of applause. Also joining us tonight is the principal of Anza Elementary, Mrs. Marks. Boys, please tell us what's happening at Anza.
Good evening. My name is Ryan, and we are here to talk about Anza Elementary School. We're going to talk about Character Counts. Character Counts is a group of 5th grade students who demonstrate the 6 pillars of character. The 6 pillars are fairness, citizenship, responsibility, respect, caring, and trustworthiness. Each student completes an application with teacher recommendations and commits to be a role model and leader for the entire school year. Character Counts give students the opportunity to help Anza. Students help with assemblies, special events, spirit days, and tallying our weekly Spirit Wear winners. Spirit Wearers are Anza clothing, and whichever class wears the most on Mondays is recognized as a class with the most spirit. Some assembly jobs include being our mascot Eddie the Eagle and giving speeches about the 6 pillars each week. We would like to give a special thanks to Mrs. Marks, Mrs. Cram, Mrs. Lee, and the board for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. Character Counts is a fun way to help our school and teach students the importance of the 6 pillars of character. Thank you.
I would like to introduce 6th grade Jefferson Middle School student Sanji Nagata. With him, his sister and family are here, as well as school principal Miss Marin and assistant principal Miss Lisa Jones.
Hello, my name is Sanji Nagata, and I'm a student from Jefferson Middle School. Would you like your school to have a program that provides positive educational effects to your students, while giving them unique experiences? If so, I'm here to introduce you to the Multimedia Club. This club allows members to get an aspect of a real-world job, such as reporting, script writing, video editing, acting, and working with different multimedia equipment. Our goal is to show a show every 2 weeks, which informs students about upcoming events on campus and gives advice to the viewers to help them get through the school year by introducing new learning habits and better ways to study. For example, during Red Ribbon Week, we interviewed students on why they pledged to be 100% alcohol and drug-free, so that the other students can learn more about Red Ribbon Week. We do our best to make each broadcast enjoyable by including student highlights and comedy in parts of our videos, so that the viewers won't lose interest. For the members, this program helps them become well organized, get things done within a deadline, and also gives them an aspect of what it's like to be in a real world job. Before I joined the Multimedia Club, I didn't know much about video editing, but after I joined, I find myself wanting to become a video editor because of how many new skills that I've learned in the course of having fun with friends. I'm always looking forward to the next school day to have fun and learn new things with the new friends that I've made in this club. We divide our teams by skills and talents, which allows students to be what they want to be. The Multimedia Club allows students to flourish in many different aspects and lets them grow both academically and personally. To improve the Multimedia Club, we would like to see it become an elective class with more professional equipment to make the videos more frequently and higher quality. I would highly recommend this program to anybody because I was able to learn new skills while having fun with new friends. Thank you for your time.
Very good, thank you. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Now we're talking the public hearing. Yeah, if you, that's a really good point. Thank you, Terry. Why don't you guys go ahead and go do homework? I'm sure you have some. I'm sure you have some.
I'm sure they have something else other than this.
Good job.
I call on you? Just read it. All right. Public hearing of the Torrance. Right here. This is a duly noticed public hearing on the Torrance Unified School District statutory school facility fees, including alternative school facility fees, reportable fees, report for the fiscal year 2016-2017 in compliance with the Government Code 66006 and 66001. Have any written comments been received from any person as to the reportable fees since November 24, 2017? Seeing none?
Do we need a motion to close the public hearing?
Is there, one moment, is there anyone present who wishes to comment on the reportable fees report or the reportable fees resolution presented for adoption on tonight's agenda? Gosh, it's quiet. I would like to have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Certain things we have to do up here by letter of law, that was one of them, so. Moving right along, we are now into the oral communications, unscheduled hearings. One of the things we have to do up here is read this. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public in order to discuss district business in an orderly
You
manner.
gonna be the timer?
Sorry?
No, I'm sorry.
In order to discuss business in an orderly manner for the privacy and safety of the speakers and to help staff respond more directly, the board policies require the public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including speakers to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such presentations is limited to 3 minutes. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another. When addressing the board, speakers are requested to state their name, address the president from the podium, and adhere to the applicable time limits. Complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and in the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussing with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. Any persons who willfully disturb any public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. Education Code 32210. And I have several people who wish to speak. Let's start with one of my favorite teachers, Mary Beth Borowski.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mary Beth Borowski. I teach at Magruder. Been a teacher at Magruder since the year 2000. And last board meeting, I watched some of the teachers speak, and one of the themes was frustration. And so I wanted to just speak to that personally. One of the teachers said that when they walk down the halls and they say, I'm exhausted or I'm frustrated, and one of the things that I got really frustrated with this year is the rollout of the Power School program. It's a new grading program that we all are using, and so that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing for teachers because that's what we rely on. That's a way that we communicate with parents, and parents want to know things, and so we want to get grades into the grade book in a timely manner. But the way this was presented was I was a little disappointed. I was in TTA meetings last year, and we knew that this was coming, and they talked about all this training, and talked about days in the summer training, and talked about days during the school year, but what happened was we were just trained 2 days before school started, or either the day before or 2 days before school started. And when we were trained, we weren't even given a live program. And we were trained by our fellow teachers who had gotten a couple hours training, not with a live program. So when you're not working with the live students, it's hard to figure out what are the frustrations. So we did that. And, we got through it, and then, we were told, please don't email IT, please don't call the board, please just go to your administrators. Well, the administrators had a totally different program than we did, so they couldn't really help us. So already we're starting off new school, new students, new grade, new curriculum, and then we have to deal with this. And when I talk about it, I would say to people, this doesn't sound like a big deal that I can't make a seating chart, but it's frustrating that I can't make a seating chart, and nobody could tell me how to make a seating chart. And so I guess my point is, if we were in charge and we were teaching our students this way, where we didn't really have any training and we were just expected to learn something, we would be in a lot of trouble. And, we don't do that to our students, and we felt like that. We felt like nobody was listening, and so it raises our effective filter, and so we are not able to give our students everything that we want to. So I just ask that if you're going to have a program that's brand new, that you train us and that you give us so that we feel comfortable with it, and that all of our questions are answered. And even on those days, I kind of was like waiting on those days in October, because we had 2 full staff development days, and I thought, well, of course someone from Power School or IT would come out and train us then. But now I finally got to go to a training of trainers, so I got to go the day before Thanksgiving break. And so now I have all this information and I want to share it with my teachers, but it's hard because I don't know when I can do that, because we have PLC. Oh, is that my time?
Yeah, your time's
Okay.
up. I'm sorry,
Anyway.
other people will speak as well. My
Okay.
apologies.
Thank
I know
you.
it's got you started, it'd be hard to stop. So.
All right, so anyway, my point is, if you give us a program, please train us, please spend the money on that. That's what the kind of training that we want.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Alan Glasband.
Good evening, board members, staff, and teachers. I'm Alan Glassband. I've been here a couple times so far, and here again. And the more I come here, the more I find out about our school district that is too bad. Since I moved here, for some of my kids could go to school in this school district, and now I'm just like, I like the breeze. That's my favorite part of the Torrance at the moment. I'm here watching how sausage is made, as someone mentioned earlier, and it sucks being sausage, and North Torrance feels like the sausage. I just heard the other teacher say that we have new testing programs, but we don't have enough books or training. And I know as a teacher myself at a different school district, it's the same stuff, different name of the program. But we had the exact same type of training where they had some people that we work with train us, but they didn't really exactly know. So they just showed us how to do the answers, and then we were done. So that's how we're supposed to teach kids too. They say we want, student-led, teacher-guided lessons. So kids are supposed to teach each other, and we're supposed to just stand there and mediate the teaching process. So anyway, I was here for something even better. The Hamilton Adult School. I did some research myself because we keep hearing that California Ed Code would never allow a K through 12 site to be on that. We've heard that from board members, we've heard that from staff. So I called the California up in Sacramento, the Ed department, and talked to the person in charge of facilities for the California Ed, and he directed me to California Ed Code 17213, capital letter C, and that was regarding the proximity to the freeway and 500 feet, it can't be 500. But the thing that stood out to me was that, and he pointed out, was that because this was built in the 50s and 60s, that law does not apply. So we could definitely redo that school if we needed space. And as a business person as well, it doesn't make sense to rent something when you already own it. We own space for adults to take classes, and we're being told that we can rent space somewhere else, so that doesn't make sense. These are my opinions. This is an opinion from an adult from the area. Mr. Glassband, I read your North Torrance monthly newsletter today. I'm very surprised to learn that Hamilton Adult School is on the TUSD chopping block. As a resident of North Torrance, I appreciate that we have Hamilton Adult School available to us for many reasons. I plan on taking a special interest class for my own personal knowledge and enjoyment. There are many classes offered with TUSD, but they are all located in South Torrance. This is the only place I plan on taking a class due to its location. Being elderly with some disabilities, it is difficult to travel further away. And I hear the little buck beaver, so there's quite a few other comments like that from elderly people who can't travel to South Torrance to take adult classes, who can't travel to a strip mall because they don't feel safe. So please, I'll be back.
Dr. Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Wormers. Just a clarification point, and I'm sure he represented the information correctly from our last speaker. But on a practical basis, and that's the process I'm just going to briefly talk about, one is based on the numbers that we've had in the 13 years I've been superintendent, and based on demographic data from the company, we do not see a need for Hamilton to be any type of a K-12 school in the near future. But if we want to do the what if would be, should the board make a choice at some time in the future to reopen a closed school, we would assign it to an architect. The architect, along with the consultants, which are engineers and other professionals, would go back through that school to determine how much work and what the work would cost to actually bring that site up to the current code. And that's not City of Torrance code, that's state code through the Department of State Architects. At that point, that funding amount would be brought back to the board for a decision. And quite frankly, based on my experience of trying to open a closed school, you're talking many millions of dollars. Now, I can't say exactly on this how much it would cost, because obviously we're not expending funds until we would actually believe we needed that school and the board would vote on it. So we're in the what if. At that point, I can say that my experience in this district is that you would not have the funds to do that. What would require is some sort of outside funding like a bond. You could also apply to the state for hardship funds. At that point, then certifications need to start. Once you're putting bond funds in there, you have to certify to the state, and that's where some issues will appear. He is correct, certainly about the ed code. There's also a section of code on construction along transportation corridors. 405 certainly is a transportation corridor with that. So when we reach that what if point, that would be the process that you actually would go through. And if in fact there was no school there today, our attorneys have indicated they do not believe you could build a school on that particular site with its location next to the 405 for many different reasons. But thank you, Mr. Wormers. Just a point of clarification so everyone understands what the process would be if there was what if.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mann. And Mr. Lee, you have a comment?
A little bit of a follow-up on that. If it were to be, a K-8, a middle school, elementary school, would we not need all the green space for the education, and would create the same problem that we have with the little leagues now?
It in fact could, depending upon again, that would be an analysis done by the architect in terms of the size of the school with the number of students and how much green space would be necessary. So that analysis certainly hadn't been done because we haven't paid for it. But
the vast majority of green space now is taken up by the North Torrance Little League and the North Torrance Girls Softball.
But then there would be the analysis that would have to take place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And not to pile on, but as a politician, I'd be hard pressed to, in good conscience, put kids that close to a freeway. If I had a magical wand, I would close UConn. It's another school that's very close to a freeway. The studies indicate it's horrible for our children's health to participate in education that close to a freeway. So, moving right along, looking for Carrie Narasaki.
Good evening, Board. Bear with me, this is the first time I've ever been at a meeting like this. I am writing as a concerned parent and a member of the North Torrance community regarding the Hamilton adult school site and the proposed plan to sell the property. My kids go to school at Arlington Elementaries, and my son plays baseball on the fields at North Torrance Little League, and we also live within a stone's throw of the site. So yes, I have a vested interest in what will happen to this property. My plea is to save the fields for the players and families of both North Torrance Little League and the Girls Softball League. There is no green space big enough for 4 fields anywhere in the North Torrance area. None of the parks have enough parking space for one, and then you would be taking away green space that is already so hard to come by in this day and age. To try and put baseball fields at elementary schools would take away from their green open space and most likely cause the fields to have to be split up on different campuses. That would mean splitting snack bars, equipment sheds, etc., creating much more work for the leagues, the players, and the families. Columbia Park, though big enough, houses AYSO Region 16 soccer all year long, and I know that my kids play soccer there. I would also like to add that it is so convenient to have baseball and softball fields in our North Torrance neighborhoods. If I had to drive out to West Torrance or even Central Torrance for the several practices and warm-ups before games, I would lose so much valuable time. As it is now, I can drop off my son for warm-ups prior to the game, go home, get dinner started, and then head back to the field for the game. This allows my family to be able to eat dinner as a unit because it can be ready once we return home from the game. If the site cannot be used as a school no longer and the district needs money, why not consider converting the site into a usable green space where kids and families can benefit? Could this area not be used to house a gym and soccer/mixed-use fields that could be rented out? There are so many basketball teams in the South Bay area who are always looking for gym time, and I know that soccer fields for the numerous soccer clubs are also at a premium. There is just not enough field space available, and clubs are always looking for fields to utilize. And again, I do have experience in this. My daughter plays club soccer in the South Bay area. I could go on and on about alternative uses for the space. Add a walking/running track around the site to promote wellness for our families. Wouldn't this be a very tangible way to demonstrate to the community your commitment to wellness, which includes both exercise and not just nutritional guidelines? Again, I plead with you to do something good for the kids, families, and communities at large of the North Torrance area. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Duenas, am I saying it properly?
It's Duenas.
Duenas, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Duenas. I am a board member on the North Torrance Little League. I've been attending these meetings for 6 months now, and it's really interesting because my first intention was to save my little boy's baseball field and the field for the girls. But I've come to realize, with speaking with so many people in our community, especially in North Torrance, is how important that Hamilton Adult School is. Now, we all know that higher education is getting increasingly expensive. The PTA president is talking about scholarships, those kind of things. NPR just had an article today about the debt that these students coming out of college are facing, and they're finding jobs that are not able to accommodate them living and paying for their student loans. And I did not pursue higher education. I got my associate's degree from El Camino. I could not afford the student loans. And I was fortunate enough, as soon as I got my associate's degree, to work as a receptionist for a law firm. And they saw my hard work and they saw my diligence. And he said to me, the attorney that I was working for, he said, "You know what, Sarah, I could pay you $4 more if you went to adult school and got a certificate." So off I went, and I got a certificate in Microsoft Office, and I got $4 more. And then years later, he said, you know what? If you went back to school and got your paralegal certificate, I could probably pay you $7 more. So off I went and got my certificate. And these types of schools are important for people like me that cannot afford those opportunities. I'm a homeowner. I would not have that if I didn't have the opportunity to get all these certificates. And you're taking this away from our community. And it's just heartbreaking because so many people are trying to make a living wage and live in LA. And they're not going to be able to do that if we don't have an adult school in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Moving on to discussion action items. Do I need to read this? We have no cards. I do? Thank you. The Board of Education, wait a minute. Instructions to the public. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. Total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require the public presentation to the board comply with certain procedures, including items 2 through 4 listed in the oral communication section. Basically the same thing I said before. We have no cards? Okay. Appointment to the board representatives, district, community, and professional communities. I don't think we want to make any changes there, do we?
Then you will need a motion.
The only change would be, as president, I am the Torrance Education Foundation representative. Okay, so a motion to that effect? A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval?
Can I, Mr. Stefan, shall we leave you? Oops.
Good. Leave me there, and I'll say my best to get there.
Okay. Yeah, okay. He was just saying Laxta is hard for him to get to, so wasn't sure if he wanted to keep it on his docket or not.
Okay.
Thanks.
Approval of board policies update, October 2017 revisions. First reading, anybody want to waive the first reading?
Make a motion to waive the first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Hang on. I actually have an aspect of one of the policies that I wanted to bring up. Should I do that before we waive and pass it?
Yes.
That was for, let's see, board policy 13.3. Oh, actually, no, that's for item 13.3, which is where we are. Board policy 3513.4A, it's on page 26. And it talks about drug and alcohol-free schools, that the following substances are prohibited on all district property. Any substance which may not lawfully be possessed, used, or sold in California, cannabis or cannabis products, and then the third is alcohol beverages. And there is a sort of a caveat that unless approved by the superintendent or designee for limited purposes specified in Business and Professions Code. I'm pretty sure that we have somewhere else in another policy that alcohol beverages are not permitted for any reason. I'm not sure why this particular policy allows for exceptions. It's important to me because I'm frequently asked actually by groups that use our campuses for a variety of things, where does it say that alcoholic beverages are not allowed on campus? And I'd like to be able to say, well, it's here in Board Policy 3513.4 that no alcoholic beverages are allowed in any way, shape, or form for any reason. So my proposal is that we say 3 alcoholic beverages and eliminate the following phrase that gives the latitude for exceptions to be made.
Mr. President, Mrs. Reagan and I did discuss this, as you know. I do not have a problem with deleting that sentence, should the board want to do that. This is a new CSBA policy. That is why that is in there. But certainly, should the board want and make the decision to remove that sentence, I have no problem with that.
As I discussed with Mrs. Reagan's earlier, the only reason to leave it in is Manhattan Beach makes thousands of dollars on their wine sale or wine auction every year. If we ever have a situation like that present itself, but Mrs. Reagan was right, they can find someplace other than one of our school properties to hold said auction. So I've got no problem removing it as well. It does close the door on us. It does close the door. So we have to be aware of that, but it's not a door I see a lot of people trying to drive through. Mr. Lee?
I don't think it's any big deal, but I remember being on the Torrance City Council talking about the Cultural Arts Center. And there was a rule that alcoholic beverages were not allowed in the parks and blah, blah, blah. And so the Cultural Arts Center was an extension of that. And they found over time that running that facility and people wanting to lease it and do those kinds of things wanted to have alcohol. In fact, the Cultural Arts Center Foundation regularly offers beer and wine at their functions. So, it could restrict our ability to lease out and get other streams of income from those kinds of facilities. And we're going to have three brand new 500-seat theaters that could be in demand for theater groups and other groups that want to do it. Probably, given how plays get done and the size of the house and that kind of stuff, they may need other supplemental income to be able to afford to bring in certain acts. So we're not going to do this without the board deciding. So, certainly it's not going to be, I don't think the principal has the authority to turn around and say, we're going to have a beer garden out here. So, yeah, I'm kind of the mind that at least if we didn't have the new auditoriums, I'd say, yeah, sure, I can't think of any reason. But in this case, given what the community uses the Armstrong Center for, I'm thinking maybe we would limit our options. That's all I'm saying.
The opposite, as an opposing perspective on that, I would expect that most of the things that they would be doing on campus in our facilities would be student things. And I actually don't believe that alcohol has any place at a student event in any way, shape, or form, so.
Yeah, but I see Mr. Lee's point that if we might have the opportunity to lease these out to the public.
If they want to use alcohol, then go to the Armstrong then. If they're doing something without alcohol, they can come to us.
All we're doing here is closing a door that we can't get back open without a board motion.
Okay.
If we leave it here, then we can open it up by just having the superintendent make a decision.
Yeah. I'm not in favor of that, and I would rather not have alcohol available on our campuses in any way, so that's just my request.
I suppose as a board, we could vote on it.
Yeah, we can. That's the whole point of discussing it here and now. That's why I brought it up. We can either change it or leave it as is.
I'll start with Mr. Lee. Do you support leaving it as is?
I do. I think it unnecessarily limits our options. It's not that we're going to suddenly have beer gardens at lunchtime at the high schools.
Yeah,
it just means that, if a theater group wanted to rent one of our facilities, which I think is part of our plan to drive revenue from those sites, it just kind of limits their option and forces them to go somewhere else, and this is part of what they want to do. So I have no problem with the way it is.
Mrs. Deutsch?
I just wanted some clarification. If we left it, the number 3, and it reads, alcoholic beverages unless approved by the superintendent or designee for limited purposes specified in Business and Professions Code. Does that mean that, let's say, for example, we do like an event where there's like a raffles or, some of the PTAs do these sometimes. Would that include the wine in the baskets?
It could.
So, we wouldn't allow that anymore, because currently that's happening.
No, in fact, we've told them they're not permitted to do that
Right.
now.
Well, I understand that, but that's a question I'm asking.
Yes. Actually, it is not permitted, as
Yeah, it's
Mrs.
not
Reagan's indicates. There's another code section, there's another board
more
policy
specific,
section which prohibits alcohol on school-side campuses.
Even during off,
It prohibits
okay,
alcohol on any school-side campus.
okay.
Which I agree is a good thing, but I've got to agree with Mr. Lee. This is kind of ties our hands. Whereas if we leave it the way it is, it falls back to you to make a decision on a per-case basis.
Right, because it's not even approving it, it has to go through you first to approve it.
Correct.
If we left it this way.
Correct.
Okay, so I support leaving number 3 the way it is.
Mr. Steffen?
I would like to leave it the way it is and see what happens after we build those auditoriums. See if there is a demand of groups of people who might find a better price range at a smaller auditorium than it would be at the Armstrong Center.
Okay.
If they want to use our facilities.
I'm assuming you support changing
I
it.
would vote to change it,
And
yes.
I too will support to leave it as is, so that's 4-1 leaving it as is, so,
You actually need to vote.
okay. All in favor?
You're voting on.
All in favor of leaving it as is?
No, we're just gonna, because there's been no change, we'll just approve it the way it is.
Okay,
So if
thank
the
you, that's what I was
motion's on
going
the
to do,
floor.
all right.
You're right.
Okay, so back to where we were. We are now voting on waiving the first reading
And the policy.
and the policies.
Mark made the motion, I made the second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
More stressful than it should have been. Moving on to
Can
the,
I ask one question? So, Dr. Mann, we need to locate the other code then, I guess, and bring this in compliance then, because we did specifically change that other one to say that.
We do.
Yeah,
So Shelley's going to need to do a search
Yeah.
to find that.
thank you.
moving on to something more fun, the approval of the positive certification of the first interim report. Dr. Stowe.
So moved.
Yes, I'm sorry, I need a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wormers, members of the board. Here tonight, we'll go through some of the details that will be reporting with the first interim and ask for your authorization to apply a positive certification to LA County Office of Education with regard to our budget for the current year, plus the 2 out years, 18-19 and 19-20. As we've done in the past, provided you some information, details about the assumptions that we took in putting together the budget as we did last June, that you approved, and moving forward. Knowing that the governor's budget proposal will come in January of 2018, we're going based on what the actual May revise included and ultimately the state budget that was improved in June. So as you can see for 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, statutory COLAs that are based on the Department of Finance, well, the statutory, the COLA, and then the LCFF gap funding as based on the Department of Finance. We have also shown there what school services recommendation is, which is slightly lower with regard to the gap funding. And remember, the gap, it's a much smaller gap. We're basically 96% funded under the LCFF. So a 66% gap closure, it really doesn't account for significant dollars as it would if the gap was larger, right? So it's a larger percentage on a smaller gap. So as we look at the increase in base funding over the prior year, you can see that for this year, we received $2.1 million more than last year. 4.6 million is what we're estimating for next year, and 4.7 for the following year, based on the COLA and the gap funding percentages. The ADA, or average daily.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
On the gap funding, we are now at 96% fully funded.
Correct.
Okay. So we will get in 1920, 64% of the difference between 96 and 100, so 64% of.
Roughly 4%, yes.
Okay, so I just want everyone to know, it's not a 64% increase.
No.
It's a 64% of that.
Closure of that small gap.
All right.
Right.
2.4% or so.
Right. So we use an average daily attendance for this assumption of just over 23,000 for this year. That really is based on last year. We have experienced about 150 student decline on an annual basis since 2012, 13. And so as we build in that, that's an assumption that we have to make. And we adjust that on an annual basis based on the numbers that we see, comparing both what the actual students are, and remember, ADA is attendance, right? We have roughly about 96% average daily attendance. ADA is not enrollment. Our enrollment is higher because we have kids that get absent. All right? So the other assumptions that we make are, as we build the budget, are on the CalSTRS and CalPERS rates. Those are increasing roughly 1.6% a year, and have been, and they'll continue to do so, as you see, going up to 18.13% for CalSTRS, and then over 20% for PERS. And those are for classified employees within the district. And these are increased costs that districts across the state are facing. You can see the number for the increased cost there, roughly $2.6 million that we budgeted for this year and then for next year based on that increase, and slightly more in the next year. When we include the step and column, which is the annual rate of increase, or annual increases for for staff, whether they're additional years of service or additional degrees or units that they might earn, that's an additional $2.9 to $3 million. And so you can see that it adds up the new money gets spent very quickly when we consider new expenses that we are faced with.
Mr. Stefan, you have a question?
Well, just make sure, the STRS, a few years back, I don't know about PERS, but it was teacher contribution was around 8, district contribution was around,
8.25.
It's about 8 too.
8 and a quarter or so, right?
Right.
So I believe that certificate staff now is about 10, and is it about 10 now?
It's 10.25, I think.
Yeah, okay, and it caps there, doesn't it?
Yes.
It caps, but.
It's different if you're hired after 2013, I think the year
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't know that. And so, but the district caps at this point at 18 and 20%.
Not cap.
No, it continues to go up
That's just the increase.
till 2021.
Oh, till 2021, okay. So this represents, what, 7.9 million over 3 years? Right, and then there's a 3 million, so that's another 9 million, so over 3 years, you're looking at 16, 17 million dollars just to pay the bill of the retirement funds.
Correct.
Mr. Lee?
Yes, let me see if I remember this correctly. They anticipate us capping our half of the STRS rate, or our bigger third, of the STRS rate, just short of 20%. But don't they have the option in the statute to raise it to above 21 or almost 22% if they deem it's necessary and they don't get the rate of return they want?
Yeah, I would defer that question to Judy Chai, who's our fiscal services officer.
Come on up, Ms. John.
Oh, boy.
Actually, you don't have that information with me, but I do have it in the office. Yes, you're right.
You need to speak into the microphone.
Okay. What I'm saying is, I don't have the information with me, the STRS rate with me, but you are right. The rate can be adjusted to a cap percentage, and I don't quite remember the cap percentage at this time, but I can give that information to you after.
So, yeah, but from the way I understood it, and when I said we don't have to be exactly right, but they anticipate it going to just less than 20%, correct? But then they have the option if they need it.
Right.
If they change their assumptions from 7% to 6.5%,
Right.
or whatever they do with their assumption rates.
Right.
That, so that's, okay, good.
Okay, Dr. Stowe, it came across 2 slides, so I want to see if I followed you correctly.
Mrs. Chai, why don't you just sit in the front row? There's going to be some other questions. I'm sorry, Ms. Moore.
Not a problem. You said in 1819 and 1920, we see an increase in base funding of 4.6 and 4.7 million. In the next slide, you talk about the fact that we are increase in STIRS and PERS of 2.6 million and 2.7 million aligned those same years, along with a step and column increase of about 3 million per year, correct?
Correct.
So the 4.6 million that we're seeing is an increase. Like I said, it comes across two slides. First slide looks, woohoo, we're getting 4.6 million. The next slide, combined with the step and column increase, it's been completely obliterated. That 4.6 million is already spent.
And then some.
And then some.
Correct.
Okay, I wanted to see if I was tracking you correctly on that, because, again, it was across two slides, so.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That answered that question.
Mr. Wormers, there's one other point, if I could just interject at this particular point. Some of you have heard me speak on this issue, which really doesn't reflect on the report Dr. Stowe is giving, so I apologize to him for intervening. But when you put these together with one other factor, you can see why school districts in California are running red in the third year out when you do the projections. And the other issue, and it is an issue that is not contained, that districts all over the state have, is the increasing cost of special education. Now, depending on where you live in California, that increase is between 6 and 9% on an annual basis, with autism right now running at 15%. These are costs, not numbers of kids. So therefore, what we're really seeing is that we are receiving, in some instances, the same number of students, but with a higher disability that have to be provided services. So again, what we're seeing over the entire state is increases in CalSTRS and CalPERS, which we talked about, but you cannot really look at the big picture in the state as a whole if you don't understand the increasing costs for special education. And that's on an annual basis. That's not over a period of time. So if we go back and look at that, that just continues to compound out into the future. And that is a huge problem right now in the state of California. Thank you, Mr. Wormers.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Dr. Stowe, go ahead.
No problem. And so the final row there, we have not yet begun negotiations for the 17-18 school year with any of the four units. So, and we have no agreements out into the future. So here we have the multi-year projection, which show the deficit spending that we have situation. And so when we look at our revenue versus our expenditures, you know, we continue to spend more than we receive from the state, and contribute more to other aspects of the budget, special education, for example, that Dr. Manna mentioned.
STIRS and PERS as well.
Right. So our ending fund balance for the current year, we're estimating at $37 million, $37.5 million, working its way down to $23 million at the 1920 school year. We do have funds that are committed for various things. And so while they are components of the ending fund balance, we've already allocated them essentially. One of those areas are funds for student achievement, textbooks, teacher credentialing, our induction program, and other one-time expenses. We've brought these before the board. Some of this money is at school sites. For example, we give the schools annually contribution for student achievement, and so sometimes they don't spend all their money in a given fiscal year, and so some of that carries over. But and then we also set aside funds for textbooks annually, knowing that a textbook adoption is $2 to $4 million, and so should we need to adopt a set of textbooks, K-8 or K-12, we can't come up with $4 million very quickly, so we set aside some annually, which is what you can see as this increase here that goes from 3.6 up to 5.2. The other area that we have committed funds are in the supplemental grant side of the LCFF, and again, these are restricted. We go through the LCAP planning process. The sites get allocated a significant amount of these funds, and we ask them to develop site school plans, site LCAPs, in order to go through the process at their school site to determine how they're going to expend those funds. And so those are components of the ending fund balance. So when we look at the total, when we subtract those two categories out of that 23 million, we end up with a reserve for economic uncertainty of slightly over $9 million. As a district of our size, we are required by the state to have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainty, which is actually only a couple weeks of payroll. And so the reserve at the end of the 1920 school year, based on these assumptions, is at 3.7%, or $1.7 million above the 3% reserve. And so, we're glad that we can, have the recommendation before you for positive certification. Although it's at 3.7, it's not significantly above that state requirement. So what we have tonight, consideration for the positive certification. We will hopefully be able to begin negotiations with all of our units here after the start of the year. We are waiting anxiously to see the governor's proposal on January 10th or thereabouts. And then in March, we'll bring you the second interim based on the information that we will have at that time.
Okay, very good. To speak to this issue, we have Deborah Tabush has presented a card. So,
good evening. Deborah Tabush, Torrance Teachers President. Good evening, President Wormers, members of the board, and cabinet. There's a couple point of clarifications that I need, and one that I would like to stress to everybody right now. And on the slide, it mentioned that we haven't started negotiations for 17-18. We first need to finish the negotiations that we started last year. So that's one thing that I just want to make clear. The point of clarification that I would like to ask is that what has changed since March of 2017 from when we had to do a qualified to now a positive certification? Is there something that you can pinpoint? Because I was trying to follow it along, and I just want to have that clarification of what exactly has changed.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I may.
Of course.
And, but one of the things that we did was the governor's, that March second interim was based on the governor's January proposal. And so the governor's January proposal was different from what was ultimately approved, or that was ultimately brought forth in the May revise and then approved by the legislature. And so we go based on the numbers that we know at that given time, and we're required to build our budgets based on the information provided to us through the governor's budget process. And so I can certainly, I'm happy to meet with you.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Deb, if you just move over 1 second, Mrs. Chai can help you answer that question.
Yeah, I think I just remember one factor. I don't have
You
the
need to speak into the mic.
I don't have the specific percentage, but I think what has changed from March until now is the gap funding percentage. That has increased a lot. When we did the projection at the second interim, the gap percentage wasn't as high as 60-some%. It was much lower.
We can get those.
She will be happy to provide that for you.
Okay, perfect. And then I do have a suggestion from the slides. When we were talking about the budget, it was in millions, and then we go to the projected, and it turns to thousands. So I'm just wondering if we can keep the vocabulary the same when we're talking about all of the slides and dealing with the money versus switching from millions to thousands and such, if we can keep that the same throughout of them.
Mrs. Chai,
we got an M.
Yes, I guess
you have to talk into the microphone, Mrs. Chai.
I'm sorry, I guess you're referring to slide number 2 and 3 that is talking in millions, and after then in thousands?
Yes.
I guess. Yeah, that's.
It seems like when we're doing conversations with our kids, that we teach them to be all the way through, that they are going to use the same vocabulary in whatever they are presenting to us. So it just seems like we would want to do that here as well.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can add an M on the millions, 42 million at work.
Thank you.
I hate to see all the zeros, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Stowe, thank you. All in favor of accepting the interim report?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to 13.5. This is to approve to adopt resolution number AS-06-17/18 of the Board of Education of the Torrance Unified School District relating to information made available to the public in the form of a statutory school facilities fee, including alternative school facility fees, reportable fees, report for fiscal year 2016-2017, reportable fees report, and findings thereof in compliance with Government Code 66006 and 66001. You just do this on this meeting to make it tough on the new president, don't you? All in favor?
I'll make a motion, or second, whatever you want.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are now on to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve, since I've got this cold, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all inclusive.
Second.
I'm not going to pull anything. Anybody want to pull anything? Anybody need to pull anything on this?
No.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and accept and approve that. All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. K, don't run away. I have a question, but it's not important. Let's see here. We're now on to the board calendar. Any comments on the board calendar? Seeing none, we're now on to the revisions to administrative regulations and exhibits. We need a vote on that one, Dr. No? No, we don't? Okay. All right. Now we have a report from the representatives of the Southern California Regional Occupation Center and Mr. Michael Wormers. He was absent at the last SoCal Rock meeting. He was out of town, so
That's
he
good.
didn't get to participate. So I have no report.
So nothing's happened in the last month?
Some things have happened, but nothing that I can report back on conclusively because I wasn't there. I do know that, for example, the superintendents have met with Dr. Hilaire, and they're in the process of working on the joint powers agreement and a few other oddball things accordingly. So, but like I said, I missed the last meeting. Any other comments from the board? Mrs. Reagan.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize some classified employees' anniversary increments. As usual, we have some folks who have completed 10 years of accredited service for the school district. And Marcia Long is one of those folks, and Renee Takaoka. Thank you for working with our kids. The following employees have 20 years of accredited service and have that anniversary increment. It's Ann Ishida, Rachel Moyne, and Melinda Saboski. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Okay, I would make an adjournment in memoriam of retired teacher Alan Everly. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second. Second from someone?
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you. All in favor of closing the meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Oh, we gotta reopen it, don't we?
Yes, we do. Now I kick over to her.
Yes, I have the pleasure of